Hey there, today on Why You Should, I want to talk about a subject that usually really pisses me off because people use it incorrectly. I guess that's not an entirely good way of saying it, but it's clones. It's copies, and it's when one thing is very similar to the other. So what's the process of creating something new? What's the process of making anything? Okay? Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter in what discipline it is. When someone creates something new, there's a very high chance that it's similar to something that's been done before. Why? Well, we're incredibly inventive creatures, but most things that we create, humans create, have been done before in one way or another. There's very few things that can be labeled completely innovative and completely super amazing and interesting. But we still create a ton of things, okay? We still create things and consider them to be new and interesting, and the species still evolves. And why is that when everything is the same as things that have done before? Because we could go, you could take something and, it's similar to something that's been done before, and that something that's been done before is similar to something that's been done before that, and on and on forever and ever and ever, okay? So why do we still... Why do we still have new things? Because there's always a difference. There's always a difference between the thing that you make and the previous thing, okay? Your inspiration, let's call it. There's always a difference. That difference might be big or it might be small. But I believe that there's a very big problem with the threshold where people would say something is new and something is a clone, okay? New is that it has enough new things, and a clone is that it's too similar and then it's not interesting, and you usually, when you say something is a clone, you usually use it in a dismissive manner, which is kind of terrible. The threshold is problematic as hell, and it pisses me off when people use it incorrectly. I'll give you a couple of examples. First of all, let's take an example from what I love. Let's take an example for Dota, okay? Dota came before any other of these games that people enjoy calling MOBA. I don't call them MOBA, I call them Dota-like, okay? Because I don't like the acronym MOBA. We're not going to get into that discussion because this is not the point of this argument, of what we're talking about today. But I call them Dota-like. I know that they are not clones because they're vastly different. The same basis is similar, but they are vastly different. And nobody would call League of Legends a Dota clone because it isn't. Okay? It simply isn't. Another example that really used to really piss me off but is less relevant because nobody plays World of Warcraft anymore is from World of Warcraft. And when I tell someone this thing, whatever it may be, has elves in it, they would say, "Oh, it has elves like in World of Warcraft." That pissed me off, clearly, because World of Warcraft elves are just generic elves, and whatever I'm telling you might also be generic elves, but there's the connection between these things is not in any place. You don't know what type of elves I'd like to put into whatever I'm talking about right now. Okay, elves are a general fantasy creature, and comparing them between things that might not be the same in any way. It would usually happen with books. Oh yeah, it has elves and dwarves. Oh, elves and dwarves like in World of Warcraft. It has nothing to do with each other, okay? And specifically, it's also annoying that people only know dwarves and elves from World of Warcraft and not from anything that came beforehand, because clearly they didn't invent dwarves and elves. And that's an annoying comparison when you say something is similar to something else. There's clearly other ones, and the most recent one that kind of pissed me off is my game that I'm creating right now. It's a card game, in case you're out of the loop from the stuff that I'm doing right now. I'm creating a card game, and it has elements from all types of card games, okay? But someone came along and said, "Oh, so it's a Hearthstone clone." Well, that's like saying every card game is a clone of Magic the Gathering, because Magic the Gathering has been in existence for, 30 years now. I just celebrated 25, I think, a while ago. I'm not sure, but it's been around for quite a long time. I'm not sure if it's the first card game to ever be made, but that's the big one. If you want to talk about a card game, you talk about Magic the Gathering. So it's like any TCG or any CCG, whatever you want to call them, trading card game or collecting card game, they're always a clone of Magic. And that's clearly not true. And specifically, my game borrows from a lot of areas, but it's wholly unique in the way that it does. It has elements from this and that, but the way that it combines them and the very specific couple of things that it does that are new, that haven't been seen before, turn it into a very different game. You can't say that it's a Hearthstone clone. I think the difference, the problem here is that people don't focus on the difference, and that's what you should really focus on. Forget the things that are similar. Look at the difference, okay? If you recognize something, oh, it has something from something else that I know, then it's a clone of that thing, or it's similar and I should dismiss it. It's usually said in a dismissive manner, which really hurts the conversation, okay? Really, really, and specifically when it's something that I made, obviously it hurts me and it feels bad. Oh, your thing is just a lame clone of something else. That's dismissive and that's offensive, okay? You should really focus on the difference, on what's new about the new thing that you're looking at. Okay, and if that thing is big enough or strong enough, then that whatever the new thing is isn't a clone. You can't call it a clone. Let's talk about an example that is, I would call it a clone. Okay, if you look at Flappy Bird and all of the other games that are Flappy Bird clones, in most of them, the differences are incredibly minor. Like just the graphics. The game is exactly the same except for the graphics. That is a clone, because the differences are so minor. They don't change the experience in any significant way, okay? Specifically Flappy Bird, even if you add mechanics, because it's such a small experience, I'd say it's such a small experience, I hope that brings forward what I'm trying to say correctly, then even if you add something small in addition to that, it's still a very similar experience, okay? It's so similar that you could say it's a clone. And I'm fine with that. Most Flappy Bird clones are clones. That's fine to call them clones. But calling a lot of other things that people use in a dismissive manner as a clone aren't. My game is not a Hearthstone clone. Okay? In any way, it's wholly unique in a lot of things that it does. It has elements that are similar in Hearthstone. Hearthstone has elements from Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering probably has elements from other stuff, okay? So you calling it a clone for the very small similarities is not a correct thing to do. And it's offensive to the conversation, and it pisses me off! Yeah. So that's removing the personal note, right? I feel that you should really look at the new things, at the differences, and not what's similar. And I know that's human nature when you think about it, because we're horrible creatures, humans. We hate change. We like everything to be completely similar and familiar. But then we would never have progress. Progress is change. Progress is when we have new things. And that's why when you look at something, don't look at what's similar. Look at the difference. And according to the difference, you decide if that thing is worthwhile, if that thing is new enough and interesting enough for you. Okay, not according to the similarities. That's something I feel is very, very strong. Stop listening to your nature. Rebel! Okay, now I'm sounding like, yeah, okay. So that's it for today, why you should. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope this has been interesting, and I'll see you guys next time.